Chapter 7. Black marks mean body or Badlands. The first thing you have to understand is that cemeteries have rules, just like any other city. When there is a special case or two different rules can be applied to a situation, the GIC makes a decision, and that decision is final. She peered at Nate. Do you know what a GIC is? Nate nodded. Ghost in charge. Maddie laughed. Him and the Major danced a little. Misty nodded and made a face. Too bad he's such an unpleasant fella. He likes to play the big shot, but there's not much chance he'll ever be demoted. He owned half the town when he died, and the town is much smaller now. There's little possibility that anyone will have a bigger funeral, so they have to follow his rules. What rules? What does this have to do with Maddie? Most people, when they die, go into the cemetery closest to where they died. If they lived somewhere else or want to be based somewhere else, they can ask for a transfer. However, there are some exceptions. If they killed someone or caused someone to die because of something they did, most cemeteries won't let the ghost in. So they're stuck with no place to go. They can't get a transfer because they aren't in a cemetery. Sometimes they wander like Maddie. Most of the mean ones get sent to the Badlands, Misty explained carefully. Where's that? Nate asked with wide eyes. What's it like? Misty shook her head. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it isn't pleasant. Most of the ghosts there are killers, and they like to keep on hurting each other even after death. Any ghost sent there who has ever discovered a way to get out, even for a little while, will do anything, and I mean anything, to keep from going back. Maddie spoke up. That's where Pa got sent. But he gets out time and again because he made a deal, trading me for a pass. What? Nate said. How can he trade you? Misty explained. Sometimes a ghost who has been sent there can make a trade. If it's a good enough trade, they can get out completely. Other times, they can get out for a while. The only thing they can trade are other ghosts. They trade their freedom for the freedom of someone else. If they can deliver a ghost who is on the edge, someone who might go in or might not have to, then the bad ghost can get an exit pass. But Maddie isn't on the edge, is she? Nate asked as he glanced at Maddie. Misty nodded. She is. Maddie was partially the cause of her pa's death. She hit him, and he wouldn't have been on that bridge if he wasn't chasing her. But that's not, Nate began. Misty held up her hand. I know it's not fair, but the rules have been handed down since there were first graveyards. I'm just explaining so you understand. That's one of the black marks the Major was talking about, Maddie said. He said there were two. What's the other? The other important rule, Misty continued, is that a person, or what's left of them, must be buried in the cemetery in order to stay there. If someone dies nearby but they aren't actually buried, then they can't get in. That's what happened to Maddie. Her body was swept away, and we've never been able to find it. Sometimes, if there is no body but someone puts up a tombstone, that's good enough. However, no one knew that Maddie was here. She was running away, and no one came looking. No body, no tombstone. That's the second black mark. Maddie looked mad. The Major could let it go on either one. He could even wink and let me in with both. But he's a stubborn cuss. He couldn't squawk if I hadn't have been the reason Pa was on that bridge, but I'm glad I was. I'd do it again in 2 shakes. She looked at Nate. That's why we got to find my body. I've been looking for nigh on to 88 years, and my time is running out. If I don't find it by the 19th of April... She trailed off, looking hopeless. What happens? Nate whispered. Remember I said some ghosts make a deal? A trade, Misty said gently. Nate nodded. Well, Maddie's pa made a deal that he would deliver her. He's her pa, and she had a hand in his death. So he can claim her if she doesn't get into the cemetery by the 88th anniversary of their death. Those are the rules. May not be fair, but the rules can't be changed. Why 88? Nate asked. 8 is the ancient symbol for eternity. 2 8s, one for each of them. He'll never get out permanently, but he can get out every once in a while. Worse, he can make sure she is trapped right there with him. She'll be in the Badlands with all those killers and evil things, not to mention her pa, forever. April 19th is in just 10 days, Nate cried, jumping up. We've got to find your body right now. Don't you think I know it? Maddie replied. The head scratcher is I got no idea where to look. What do you mean? You said you went in at the bridge. You said you looked up and saw the remains of the bridge. It's obvious that your body is somewhere under the bridge. Maddie shook her head. No such luck. We've been looking every which way since Misty was littler than you. Never found nothing. Misty nodded. Once, when I was 7, I was up on the hill behind this house, gathering flowers, and I saw a girl walking toward me. She was dripping wet like she had just poured a bucket of water over her head. Nate looked back and forth between the two. You've known each other that long? Misty smiled. We used to play all the time. I would tell my friends and my parents about her. She laughed. That's when they started calling me crazy. I guess I just grew into it. Maddie smiled. We spent years and years digging in the banks of that brook, trying to find a little scrap of me to bury. I'd go under the water, peering this way and that, trying to figure where I was that last time, but I never seen the same view again. Misty shook her head. I would climb up to the bell tower of the old school and look as far as I could to see any other place the brook might have taken her body, and any place that looked promising we'd go and hunt around. Still nothing. She smiled sadly. No one could figure out why I spent so much time digging in the banks of the brook. I guess it was lucky they thought I was a little off. They just figured it was part of my crazy and let me do what I wanted. Wait a minute, Nate said with his hand raised. What bell tower? There's no bell tower in town. Misty smiled. There certainly is. The building is the art center now. The tower in front is a bell tower. Really? I've never heard it ring. I wonder if the bell is still up there. I'm certain it is. I'd have heard if they took it down. It used to be the alarm bell for the town. There's a special door on the side of the tower. You have to look carefully to see it, but you can open it and the rope for the bell is there. Anyone who saw a fire or anything else important would ring the bell and everyone would come to find out the news. They don't use it anymore now that we have phones and TV. Maddie grinned. I remember you used to sneak out and ring it every Halloween night. Misty nodded and never got caught. Chief Bill started taking down the rope on Halloween to stop me. Maddie laughed. But you'd skinny up inside the tower and ring it anyway. Misty smiled. Remember the year Izzy and his friends climbed up earlier in the afternoon and hid so they could scare me? Maddie hooted. Do I ever? You near fell out of that tower. Of course, when they chased you down and went back up to ring the bell, I waited till they was up top and started ringing it my own self. They almost messed their britches when it started ringing and they couldn't see anyone ringing it. They never bothered me again after that. So, hold on, Nate said. If you've been looking for all this time and haven't been able to find it, what makes you think I can help? It sounds like your body washed away. Maddie shook her head. Can't be. It's tucked up somewhere hereabout. Got to be, 'cause I'm stuck here. Remember? I told you if I go more'n about a mile from this spot, I pop back like a rubber band. I got to be somewhere nearby. My body's just hidden. You've just got to figure out a way to find me.